join it when they have time. And we'll continue to let people into the room as the meeting progresses. But I want to get started because we have a lot to talk about and a lot to share. I'll start off with the Santa Fe Community College land acknowledgement. Santa Fe Community College acknowledges that the lands beneath the college are the unceded sovereign lands of the Pueblo Nation of Tesuque, Nambe, Hawaii, San Ildefonso, Okeowinge, Cochiti, Kiowa, San Felipe, Santa Ana, Zia, and Jemez, and that New Mexico's indigenous peoples, their governance, cultures, languages, and religions have been systematically attacked over centuries of settler colonial erasure. SFCC recognizes and respects indigenous peoples as the original and current stewards of the land where we learn, work, and grow. SFCC commits to recognizing the collective histories and to engage in restorative action that demonstrate inclusive support for Indigenous community members while practicing responsible stewardship of the land. By honoring and listening to Indigenous voices, SFCC will embody anti-racism through ongoing restorative action for social justice. Thank you all for coming today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Val Nye. I'm the library director here at SFCC, and I am really honored to work to bring us all together and talk about this new world we're finding ourselves in with ChatGPT. And it is my pleasure today to introduce the panelists who will be guiding us through the discussion. Julia Duncan is an instructional designer and tech for online teaching and learning here at SFCC. She's been here for more than 5 years, and before that, she was an OIT technician, a tutor, and a student here. She is passionate about psychology, learning, and leveraging technology as a bridge to connecting people. Julia is a great colleague and has given ChatGPT a lot of insightful consideration, and I know she's going to have a lot of great information for us today. Dr. S.J. Miller is a professor of teacher education here at SFCC. S.J. is passionate about art house, indie, and international films. And I did not know this, S.J. is a skilled cat trainer. So beyond ChatGPT, if you're needing some real world, real animal intervention, perhaps S.J. can provide that with some training with us later. SJ is going to bring forward some of the issues that faculty are facing regarding ChatGPT and having ChatGPT in education, and I really look forward to SJ's wisdom on this topic. And Sarah Hood is joining us today. She's a reference and instruction librarian here at Santa Fe Community College and has been here for nearly 6 years, or been here for 6 years. Before coming to New Mexico, she was head of research and instruction at Columbia College in South Carolina. She has been concerned about ChatGPT at least since December 6th of last year. I went back and looked at my email, and that was the first Sarah email I got with ChatGPT as a flag. So it doesn't seem like that long ago, and yet it does. Like it's been a long time we've been talking about ChatGPT. Sarah has presented and attended several ChatGPT national training sessions and has given ChatGPT a lot of consideration as a researcher, a librarian teaching students, and about using it as a place for locating information. I'm grateful you all are here today to talk about this important topic. We're going to want to have a conversation about this. But at this time, I think we'll save questions until the very end. If questions occur to you as we're having our session, please put them in the chat and I'll collect them and ask as we move forward today. And if you have your own ideas as things come forward, as you're listening to the panelists talk, please make note of those so we can follow up with them. ChatGPT is definitely a moving target at this time, and anything we may decide with certainty will certainly change in the next several months and years. So I think this is something we all need to be talking about and looking at from our various perspectives. So with that, I will turn things over to Julia Duncan. Take it away, Julia.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. First, let me make sure that everybody can see it and can hear me.
I can see it and I can hear.
Alrighty, thank you. Okay, so from the beginning, I will start with my agenda. It's going to be a review and then a little bit about the company, covering plagiarism and some strategies for prevention and detection, and then going into the class utility, how it can be used in the classroom and online, and then we will be opening it for discussion. In the plagiarism section, Val is going to speak a little bit about SFCC policy. And in the class utility, that's where I will be opening up the floor to SJ before we talk about it. So I thought for the review, I was just going to go over ChatGPT as a tool since that was like the main highlight of the last session. It is a large language model that does generative, or it's a generative pre-trained transformer. And in common parlance, that just means that it generates text that is supposed to look a lot like what it was trained on, what it was fed. It can re-explain prompts, it can answer questions and create outlines and summaries. You can ask it to do math for you or to correct your math and to show you steps. You can ask it to create coding. You can run coding through it and it will give you feedback on that. And of course, there are a ton of other non-academic purposes that I chose not to go over here today because, well, we're in education. What it can't do is it doesn't surf the web for answers. It's based upon what it was fed before the day that it was launched. It's iffy on sources. You have to specifically ask it to back up what it says, and sometimes it cannot do that. As with any other AI, it's based on programming from human beings, so it is not perfect, and you can expect that there might be some bias in its answers. And again, that it will be incorrect sometimes. The most recent iteration of ChatGPT is ChatGPT 4, and it was launched on March 13th of this year. So it has new knowledge since it was launched in November, but only a few months. So a little bit about the company. It's OpenAI is the name. It was founded with Elon Musk and Sam Altman and some others, but those are the most famous names. Their mission, this is from their website, is to ensure that artificial general intelligence benefits all of humanity. I don't know about you guys, but I was kind of reading that in a little bit of a sarcastic voice because teachers are like, this doesn't benefit me. This makes my life harder. So yeah, you can have a goal. Varies how you meet it. This is from their about page, the plan for the AGI, Artificial General Intelligence, and I think their charter. Who are they? They started as a think tank. It was in 2015. You can tell from like the content that's on their website. They have so many articles about every little thing. They were created with the intention to research and deploy AI. Elon Musk stepped out of it because there was a conflict with the AI being developed for the Tesla cars. So it is now Sam Altman's and their board of directors, but he's stepped away. They currently operate and modify their AI according to feedback. That's pretty much their entire business now. And some of the products that they have come up with or made most accessible are the GPT-4, DALL-E, and Whisper tools. GPT-4 we know, DALL-E is a abstract art generator. It can create like iterations of photos, of drawings, and storyboards, a whole bunch of things, but it's the one that's image based. And then Whisper is the AI that functions for speech to text. And that one can be used to translate multiple languages into English. It can be used to like write essays from an audible standpoint first. That's pretty much its main function. Next is their plan. So what they plan to do in the future is they want to continue to program AI to mitigate the risk. They took care in their charter to mention that they really wanted to have AI be something accessible to everybody. And they recognize that it has as much power for good as it does for evil and being used in like autocratic societies. So they want to take it a piece at a time so that we have the chance to adapt to it, like it says in their dreams. They want to make sure by their mission that it is mostly used to benefit and not to do harm. They have more plans for making specific models that will be used for other purposes than just ChatGPT-4 or the images. They want to kind of partition it into specific tasks. They didn't really say what those would be yet, so I suppose it will come down to the feedback that they get. And we are kind of following with their other intention. They really wanted people to start talking about how to adapt to AI and how to use it as best as we can and how to make sure that it is not abused. So it's a good thing we're doing this because they want to know. And finally, they really wanted to, in their dream, also communicate that they're passionate about sharing information, the progress that they've made on the tool, and that the tool helps society. And in sharing their decisions, they don't plan to be making these things in a silo. That's why they wanted to release and hear what people had to say about it. And then, yeah, the rest was really just closer to their mission as well. So now we get into the less idealistic part of it and the more down to earth. Plagiarism and strategies for prevention and detection. This is where I'm most involved. I don't know about passionate because I really do like reading about the idealistic things, but it's close to what I do. So in terms of prevention, what do we have in our toolbox? What can we learn to do to prevent students from cheating, from undermining themselves and their learning, and from using it in assignments in a way that doesn't help them? Key to that, you want to make assignments meaningful to students. I know that plenty of websites have said you can't out prompt it if you ask it to do a perspective of a Latino mother or Latina mother, it can do that. So you want to make sure that the assignments are even more specific than that. You can tell it, or you can tell the students to bring their own experiences and to ask them, well, what would make this assignment interesting to you and meaningful for your future, and involve them like that. Very importantly, and not just for ChatGPT, but because there are plenty of websites that you can use to ask other students or share your assignments, it's really critical to change or rotate your materials. That way they're new and they can't be just posted anywhere to be repeated. We can highlight why students specifically want to do their own assignments, what it means for their critical thinking abilities, what it means for being able to express themselves and share their own experiences. Even just to like clarify their thinking, writing can really help just like cement their own values. Something that we can do in terms of like designing classes is we can create scaffolding and support opportunities. That's like breaking up an assignment into multiple pieces, multiple parts, so that they're doing it a bit at a time and that they have a chance to get feedback on their progress. That's in the shape of like peer reviews or drafts, asking them to do annotated bibliographies. So they're looking up their sources and planning how to put them in. Outlines do the same thing. In terms of a little more hands-off approach, you can also have students sign agreements that say, yeah, I won't use it. Here's my signature, and count on the honor system. There are studies done that say that that's a very trustworthy method. You can also post announcements, just general warnings, or like post in the syllabus, hey, I'd really appreciate it if you don't use ChatGPT. I will be paying attention. It's not something that I ignore. Back to the planning of the courses, you can also ensure that there is alignment in your materials. Make sure that like the readings or videos that you provide are pertinent to what you are asking them to demonstrate. And hey, you could even limit those materials to be the only thing that students need to reply in assignments. If ands or buts about that, because then they're not doing their own research. But if that's what is pertinent to the questions that you're asking, they might not need to research. And then something that I initially shrugged off when I was reading a bunch of advice as to how to handle this, but upon reflection, I thought it was really important. Making a strong rapport with your students and building a relationship with them that has like mutual respect and trust there, I think is very critical as well to having them bring forth their best selves to the class and to continue to learn. In terms of detection, if indeed you need to go to that point, Microsoft Word has a tool for detecting word matches in online sources. This is specifically in the case of like citations that are missed or not present. It can detect exact words on the internet. It does a little search in the editor. In terms of at the school, if there's interest, we can request projects for plagiarism tools to be requisitioned and added to Canvas or individually our separate accounts, depends on how they operate. You can always ask questions about how to get that started. We do know. And then there are some free websites, courtesy of Dr. Bernizer, theundetectable.ai and aiwritingcheck.org. And then as well, OpenAI has their own classifier. Like the word of warning says, and I was even reading their article, it detected it correctly about 26% of the time. So that's less than half. And there were some false positives and false negatives. I don't remember those percentages, but 26% is not very reliable. That's pretty weak. So AI text is pretty sophisticated at this point. It's not really something that we can guarantee it will be found. And yet the tools are being consistently taught how to imitate people's style or add in realistic errors. So I don't really like to encourage the detection part of it so much as the prevention. We have much more reliable strategies to stop it even happening in the first place. And furthermore, it's really not that fun. It's time consuming to have to do the damage control aspect of it. And if you think about it, do you spend more time worrying and trying to find it, or could you spend less time just planning the classes ahead of time to prevent that? So next up, we have Val's portion. If you'd like to step in.
Sure.
I'll stop my sharing.
Yeah, oh, you can keep it up. You can
Okay.
Actually, that would be helpful. The slide will help me out. So one of the questions that I've heard asked a lot is about SFCC policy, and we need to address SFCC policy immediately to deal with ChatGPT. But there are two kind of roads to follow when it comes to ChatGPT. I think there are going to be some faculty who want to have students use ChatGPT as a tool in their class. So prohibiting it across campus for assignments and for work isn't something that I think I would recommend at this point. Because it is going to be a tool that we need to learn how to query and use appropriately. And the various workforces that our students are going to go into are going to be utilizing ChatGPT now. If they're not doing it now, they're going to be very soon. So I just wanted to point out the policies that currently exist that deal with academic dishonesty. While they don't list any tool in particular, I think these do address ChatGPT and how it is being used and what the intention is for the assignments you're making for your class. So academic dishonesty is any behavior that misrepresents or falsifies a student's knowledge. So if a student were to go to ChatGPT, have it create an outline, have it create a paper, this is falling into academic dishonesty. And then further down in that policy is a definition, well, within classroom conduct, it talks about plagiarizing and cheating. Again, ChatGPT isn't named here specifically, but I think this policy does a good job of talking about what is expected of students, and if ChatGPT or AI devices like ChatGPT are not allowed by an instructor, I believe that this policy probably addresses that issue. So, and I think, Julia, your comments about being upfront with students and the expectation about how what is expected from their assignments and what is expected as far as their contribution to their assignments is a really important means of dealing with some of this. But honestly, this is going to be something we're going to be grappling with for a while, I think. How do we detect ChatGPT generated material for classes? And and as Julia was saying, even in the best of circumstances, finding that somebody has done something using ChatGPT instead of using their own skills is incredibly difficult. So I just wanted to point out these policies. They may be something we want to address or kind of shore up as we see what ChatGPT is doing and how students are using it. But I think these are really good places to start, and there are policies that already exist for us on our campus. So I think I'll turn it back over to you, or do you want SJ to move on at this
Let me
point?
see. Go back in here. Classroom utility.
Great.
Yeah, I just have this one little slide, and I'll be quick because I see that we're at 2:30 already. And then I will pass it to SJ if that's okay. Okay, so I did some searching over various websites for ideas that other teachers had been using in their class, like actually adopting ChatGPT as a tool for use. And these were kind of some things that I found. A lot of their ideas could be summarized into using it as a tool for like the initial steps in an assignment, or else to use as a feedback tool, because it can like pick out errors or weaknesses in prose and give students feedback about how they could correct it. So you can either use it to correct or to correct your work afterwards. It's great as an accessibility tool. Whisper specifically, if you have students who just work better saying things to a computer rather than typing things out, they can do speech to text. Think it was ChatGPT that was the one that can create captions for images. You could use, students can use their native languages to draw up essays from scratch and then have them translated. That's really helpful if it's English as a second language and they are more eloquent in their native language. And then just some things I was coming up off the top of my head that I could daydream could be used. You can develop smart prompts for AI. This is really helpful in terms of like learning how to research. If you can figure out how to phrase your questions correctly, or insert keywords, that can really help in terms of searching like journals for specific articles. That's something I'm doing right now in my graduate class, and it's mind-boggling. In terms of like classes that involve coding and AI, you can deconstruct its logic, and it's used as well for design. You can have it help you like brand or storyboard or create caricatures. That was just some of the stuff off the top of my head that I could think of. And then I really wanted to finish off myself with, there was a tweet, I can't remember the author, but in a New York Times article that was talking about how like there have been disruptive developments in education before, like Google, and we have learned how to adopt them in the classroom and outside of it. And we can do the same thing with ChatGPT. It's about teaching students how they can be critical of these tools and how they can see the impact that they will have on society, and how we can teach them to do higher order thinking than just accepting what these machines will say at root. And that really stuck with me. But next up, we have SJ. Go ahead. Awesome. stop sharing.
Cool. Thanks, Julia and Val, for all the information. And Sarah, thanks for kicking this off a few months ago. I think we were all really inspired by your presentation. So again, I just want to thank all of you for this conversation. What I'm going to do is talk a little bit about what this looks like in practice. And I think that the framing here has been perfect. So first, I just want to start off with a comment about this, and then I'm going to actually ask you all to help me with part of what I want to show you. There's a great quote that says, "The greatest enemy of technology is not technology, but in our own resistance to learn it and apply it in school." So rather than push it away, how can we use it as an ally? How can we be friends of ChatGPT? And I always like to joke that it's a library joke, Val, that the greatest thing that ever happened to books was banning, because what happens when you ban books? Teens want to go read them. So the second we start to ban something like ChatGPT or have a deficit perspective of what it is, it's only going to increase people's interest in it. So how do we embrace this? So what I did is I created an assignment for my teachers when I wanted them to think about how do you employ ChatGPT in your classroom and what does it look like? And many of the teachers, what they came up with was fascinating. So I'm going to explain the assignment and then give you some of the examples that they actually came up with. So what I talk to my students about is that we know that the digital age is here. It's far more vast and widespread than the tools that ever came out of the Industrial Revolution, which were the pen and pencil. In fact, we know that our students' primary literacy learning cannot be divorced from technology. What they're referred to today is the net gen or the pre-net gen generation, or I like to call them Gen Text, where they were born into a world where digital language of computers, video games, and the internet were already present. While pre-Gen Net, those of us who were not born into the digital world, have in some point in our lives become fascinated and even had to adapt and adopt the different modes of technology for language learning. So I suspect that some of you on the call fall into both of these, or one of these camps, right? You are pre-net gen or net gen. So again, how do we embody and harness these skills to help them because our life? And what we know, everybody's thinking about this in the next 5 to 10 years, what we're seeing with AI and ChatGPT is only going to magnify. This isn't going away. And if you're paying attention to what's happening in the metaverse, you know that you can now purchase virtual real estate and you can trade. And so people are spending money similar to Bitcoin in virtual real estate. So one of the things we're seeing in education then is that equity and access for technology is going to continue to create these or exacerbate the divides that we're already seeing within our different communities. And there are two great resources. One I really want to encourage everybody to watch if you have a chance. It's free on Netflix. It's called Coded Bias, and it has won tons of awards. And the other is a book by Ruha Benjamin called Race After Technology, Abolitionist Tool Jim Code. And what both of these, the book and the documentary talk about is that there is a discriminatory design, right? So a lot of the language that is encoded in ChatGPT and AI is a form of engineered racism, ableism, sexism, all the different types of isms that we see. And the normalization of how this language and the different isms operate is it continues to perpetuate like different racial hierarchies that are designed within these systems. So it's absolutely critical then that people really start to decode in order to encode. And I'm going to show you that in a minute. But the idea here is that the engineering of racism and all the different types of discrimination become so normalized that we don't even know that we are using it. So it's critical to have people at the table to rewrite these algorithms. So what's happening with ChatGPT and AI is that the more we use and encode language into these different systems, the more it is used. And so I did a search before we got on about the new ChatGPT and how many different languages it actually translates into. And right now there are about 50, and that's, I typed in from America, right? So maybe you're doing ChatGPT from India or Thailand or New Zealand. It may come up differently there. I don't know, because obviously I'm only coming from a US perspective. But then within each of those different languages, think about this, that again, there can be these types of engineering, these algorithms creating, if we continue to use discriminatory language. And so there are, I mean, there's a body of literature that's really coming out right now that's helping people think about who we're creating these algorithms. Because right now, if you think about this for a second, we talk about social justice and equity, we have to be mindful, because every single thing we're saying is creating a new algorithm, or it's exacerbating an algorithm. And in fact, I don't know how familiar everybody is with, but when you have something like Siri or what's the little person in your call, which I don't have, what's it called?
Alexa?
The little, an Alexa, right? So Alexa listens to you, and eventually Alexa starts to use your own language. Alexa doesn't necessarily critique your language. So you're building algorithms in your home. Those algorithms get logged on the back end of everything. And those words are what get fed back into the system. There's a great film called Kimi, Kimi, which deals with this. It also deals with abuse against women, so it's very difficult. But the good part of it is that her bot was on when she was being assaulted, and so that got fed into the system and got fed to the police. So there are all these different tendrils that this is going into. So what happened, and this is what I ended up putting into my class, my cousin lives in Austin, and her daughter is in an IB program, and that class had to turn in a paper. Okay, the teacher just assigned the paper, and this is what resulted right out of the teacher's mouth. The teacher said, "I just spent the hour grading course in Origins of South Asian Independence quiz. I'm incredibly disappointed with the result. Of the 61 quizzes turned in today, 18 had one or more answers that came back as less than 70% human generated. I then used this website, which I'll show you in a minute, everybody, that where 70% of you did not receive credit because of the AI generated. So here is this teacher had never taught about AI, finds out 18 students in his class plagiarized a history paper. That's to say that, I mean, the rest of the email he wrote them was pretty angry. And he was giving students an opportunity to come talk to them about what they did. So I want to show you this website. Whoops, let me put it up. Julia, when I put this up, will it show? Oh, I have to share it, right?
Yeah, you have to share first, and then you can either limit it to your browser or to that specific page.
Okay, so can everybody see the screen okay?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so what you would do is you would paste in the students' responses here, and then it would tell you how much it's plagiarized. Now, I don't have those responses, but I'm going to show you an example. My student teachers can say, I want to do a lesson on Martin Luther King. And what will happen is this will write up the lesson plan for our students. It doesn't put in sources necessarily. It's very shallow, but it works. And so if students want to teach about it, they can. It creates a lesson plan in less than 15 seconds. So I did this as an example to show my effective teaching course. And I'm going to put it in to show you exactly what I mean. This is a generated lesson plan from ChatGPT. Okay, I'm pasting it in here, and I'll show you where I got this in a minute. Oh, it limits it to characters. Let me delete some of this. 1,500 characters. Okay. So lesson plan is in here. This is from ChatGPT, and I'll show you how I created this, like I said, in a minute. But if I wanted to analyze how much of this is plagiarized, what I do is I go down to analyze text. It says 99%. Oh, and that's human. That's not the right one. I think I put the wrong one in there. Let me go back to this other one. Sorry about that. That's scary. That said 99% human generated. That's not what I was looking for. All right, let's just go to this other one first then. Let's code it for you.
I was totally along for the ride.
Okay, sorry about that.
It's okay.
Okay, so here's some of the things that I was playing with. So you'll see I put who is Becky Rowley, I play with language, I play with Spanglish, and then here's the civil rights lesson plan. So all I did was say, write a lesson understanding the civil rights. So let me show everybody what happens if I do that. I'm going to put it right here, understanding civil rights lesson plan. I'm going to hit return and watch what happens. Oh, I could have said grade level too, my bad. Okay, so there's an example of a lesson plan if you're in a hurry. So what I was just showing you on the other link was I cut and pasted that into AI, and then it tells you how much of it was human generated versus AI generated. So with my teachers then, they created lesson plans, they looked at it, they played with it, we talked about it. And again, it was about how do you use this as a resource rather than as an enemy. And people are using this left and right now. Because it obviously shortens everything and shortens their time doing work. So then within the class, we talked about the lesson plan, and I worked with my students on an adaptation of how do we mindfully use ChatGPT as an ally. And so there's the theory of connectivism, and connectivism is the way in which ideas come together through technology. And so there is an adaptation of Bloom's taxonomy through Bloom's digital taxonomy. And so if everybody can see this down here, and basically, I know most of us are familiar with Bloom, but there are these different levels in which teachers can actually practice some of this work with their own students. So building in digital technology technology skills as they're teaching students with technology can help them develop a critical mindset around the use of technology in their classroom. So I'm going to end there just because I know that people have questions. I'm happy to send any of these resources and so forth. So
real quick, can you zoom into that Bloom's taxonomy? Because it was kind of small text.
Whoops. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay. I
had heard about this, but I've never actually seen it. This is really cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I like
but
that.
even from the student teachers we have, like this is brand new to them too. the scaffolding.
Mhm. Thank you.
That's a joy.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think everybody, we can open it up to discussion and questions. Hopefully we didn't all chat your ears off asleep.
If you have a comment or a question or something you're dealing with in a class or something you've heard about that you want to talk about, that would be great. Just unmute yourself and talk. Sarah's raising her hand. Sarah?
Thank you, Julia and SJ, for being primary voices in this session. I really appreciate that. I'm kind of curious if there are some instructors out there who are having departmental, or whose departments have had departmental meetings, or if there have been, of course, there's been hallway conversations and I think informal conversations. I'm curious if there are any departmental meetings happening that are going to be talking about policy and how instructors and departments are going to be handling things like ChatGPT, because we can never have too many departmental meetings, right? So I'm curious about that.
Maybe not.
Maybe not yet. I mean, I would definitely encourage it. Again, I know that there are, it's so hard to find time to meet about these kinds of things, but I that's probably something that would be good to do. But yeah, I'd be curious to hear how some of those conversations play out. So we'll certainly, I'm sure we'll hear more of that, in the coming months. So that's just something I was curious about. All right. Yeah.
I have a thought. This is Michael. Oh, there I am, I guess. This is kind of way back, but it struck me as I was listening to some of the conversation. When I first started to work in an English department back in the 70s, the composition program was structured in such a way that freshmen would write 7 papers in a quarter. They were a quarter system, the quarters then. 7 papers in a quarter, and 5 of the 7, was this a requirement, had to be in class, and only 2 were out of class. And the freshman director was really strict about this, and everybody said, oh yeah, this is the way to do it. And years went by and he retired, and a new fellow came in with some new ideas, one of which was revision, basically, as being important to writing. And his point was that we had a program that was set up to stop plagiarism, basically. That's what this was all about. If they're writing in class, then they can't be cheating. And so his thought on it was, let's suppose we've got 10% of the students will cheat. And he thought it was probably less than that. So we've got our whole program designed to control this 10%, and we're punishing the other 90% who aren't getting a chance to work on revision. So he just turned it upside down. And so virtually all the work now is done out of class. And about this time, computers started creeping into the program, where it was much easier to do revision. So we went kind of in that direction, where it wasn't a technological issue exactly, but we had to watch the students because they were going to do bad things if we didn't keep an eye on them. And then that limited the revision. And then, coincidentally, the revision process came to us in terms of word processors. So you really needed a program where students could be encouraged to revise their work. So we went the other way. And so most of the work was done out of class. And I think you had one of the things on Julia's chart here was that you need to work with your students. There has to be some trust there. And then you have to ask yourself, well, the chatbot's here. And how many of our students are likely to do this? How many of these students are likely to do things they shouldn't be doing? And one would think that the percentage is probably rather small. And then if the instructor encourages students to think in terms of how following the guidelines can help them become better writers, better thinkers, they're more inclined to do that. And then this idea of trust between the student and the teacher, the students are not likely to want to do something dishonest with a person who's obviously cares for them and wants to help them become better at what they do. So anyway, that's a thought that just struck me. So in other words, I agree. I think this is not a technology to run from, but to be embraced. But the trick is to how to figure out how to do that in a good way.
Unfortunately, we have 16 weeks to do that rather than quarters, because quarters are kind of brutal.
They went to semesters pretty quickly, actually.
Yeah. I am in a quarter system right now, technically less than a quarter, because it really takes 6 weeks as opposed to 8 to finish. And we do at least 500 words every week. And yeah, it's hefty.
Well, another guideline here was that we were training the idea was the purpose of the freshman program, they had the 2 courses, like credit courses like we still have here. We're getting them ready to write in-class essays when they take tests in history and sociology and so forth, where they come in and they have 50 minutes or 60 minutes to respond to a question. They have to do it right there. So we were giving them practice in doing that, basically. And again, like the new director said, this is not what we're in business. We're not in business to do that. This is something else we need to be doing. But that was a long time ago. So.
Well, I don't know how many of you have played around with ChatGPT too much, but I appreciate your figure about 10%, Michael, but I consider myself a very honest person. I consider myself honest, and I think as a student under pressure,
Yeah.
I would use this tool. I think the key thing is we need to teach people how to use it wisely,
Right.
and how to integrate what they find from it into a critical thinking model that we're wanting to teach them, because it is just so easy and so fascinating to see how smart the machine can be and what it can come up with. And it comes up with ideas that I have never had before that are great. And do we want to encourage students to claim those ideas as their own? Do we want them to do research on those ideas and see if they're viable? I don't know. I think there are different ways we should be teaching students to use the information that's generated from it. And then also, this is just my own life experience. My dad is turning 80 this year, and he told me last weekend he's using ChatGPT to put together his lesson plan he's doing for church. So people of all ages are using this for all sorts of different things. It's not a secret anymore. Everybody knows about it, and our students are using it. So
oh yeah, they all know about it.
yeah. Stephen, do you have a question or comment?
I was just going to say, one of the important things is we learn from the youngest ones. One of my teachers is a kindergarten teacher, assigned her kids to write a paragraph, and was so impressed by one little girl's paragraph. They talked to the girl and were praising her, and she said, "Oh, I didn't write it. I used speech to text."
But she did write it in a way.
In a way, yeah, I would say yes.
In a way, in a special way.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was back in high school, I was a really anxious person, and I would take forever to write essays and finish quizzes. So like in exams, I was the student that stayed forever, and the teacher had to be there with me. And eventually one of them was just like, all right, so you're going to tell me your answers and I will write them down for you, but you're going to have to verbalize it. And it was so much faster. So a lot of people just think better aloud than they do writing. So
Yeah.
it's perfectly viable.
For those of you who haven't clicked on chat, take a look at it. There's a lot of really great resources in the chat.
And we're just about out of time. I know that all of us who talked today would be happy to support any of you, to take questions offline. I think this needs to continue to be a community conversation that we have. We need to share information. We need to share strategy, and if necessary, change policy on campus where it is necessary. And I just want to thank Julia, SJ, Sarah, again, for bringing all of this forward. Again, we'll put this recording on the SFCC YouTube channel. So if you're wanting to refer your colleagues to the discussion today, that's where it will be. And we will continue to have these discussions going forward. So thank you all for being here today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah. Ditto that.
Thank you. Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Val.